What's up, guys? This is Hale Hentges, intern at Locker Room Talk and tight end at the University of Alabama. So, as some of you guys might know, National Hydration Day is coming up here June 23rd. And for someone like me, hydration is extremely important every day of my life. I know for a lot of you guys it is too. And I really just wanted to be able to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to conquer, any hydration issues that you might be having. Because as you can see in college sports, it's extremely important. So hopefully I can give you guys some good knowledge on order what to do and really just how to conquer that. So I want to start it off by just kind of telling you the importance of staying hydrated. As you guys know, you can't perform at your peak level if you're not hydrated. And a lot of you might not fully understand what that perfect hydration looks like. I know all of you guys have seen, that cliche like P chart, but I really want to kind of be able to tell you exactly what that looks like. And so here's a picture of, everything that the different spectrum of hydration. As you can see, this top part here, that's pretty much clear. That's what you're going for. Down here, dark brown. Comment if you guys have ever peed that, because I do not believe you, because I've never seen that ever. So if you guys have peed that, let me know. And you'll probably be the first person who have ever said that. But you really need to be going for up in here. And how you get to that is totally up to you. And everybody has, a different process or whatever they use in order to get to that maximum hydration. Obviously down here at the University of Alabama, it's extremely hot. And what I do is probably different than some of what you guys do. But I kind of want to walk you through what I do in my daily life to make sure that I'm ready to practice in 100-degree, 110-degree heat that we have to go through. So what a typical day looks like for me. Rachel asked a really good question that I'll answer real quick before I get into this. Is it possible to be overhydrated? That's definitely possible. So what you kind of want to do is get to that point to where you're peeing clear. And if you get to that point where you're peeing like every, 5 minutes, which I do sometimes before games, then you're probably overhydrated. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a bad thing. You've probably heard those horror stories of people drinking too much water and their, kidneys fail or their brain collapses or something like that. But it would take a lot to get to that point. So just go until like you feel like you can't pee. You're peeing like every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. Okay, so I'll kind of walk you through like a typical day looks like for me. And I'm going to talk about what fall camp looks like, which is the worst possible time for hydration issues. Like you have to be perfectly hydrated during fall camp because you're going through, practices, meetings, times where you're really going to be needing to be fully hydrated. So it all starts the night before. A lot of people think that, I can just wake up and drink water and I'll be totally fine, which works for some people. But for me, someone who I would consider is on the extreme end of the spectrum, this does not work for me. So you've probably heard of the old soldier's technique where if you drink a ton of water before bed, you'll wake up early and you'll have to pee. I live by that because you have to wake up early anyway to go to meetings. But two, you'll wake up in the middle of the night and you'll have to pee and you'll be hydrated. So what I try to do is literally just drink a Gatorade and a water before bed, like 32 ounces, probably something like that. And it'll hit you like 3 or 4 a.m. and then you'll be hydrated for the day before, because a lot of people get themselves into a hole from the very beginning by your body goes 8, 9, 10 hours without, drinking anything. So naturally you're going to be dehydrated. Then after that, I pretty much drink in regular intervals throughout the day. And what that will be is anything from, water, Gatorade. You usually want to stick to those 3 things. One thing that I really like is this coconut water here, Vita Coco. That's really good. That kind of, it's got a lot of sodium into it, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But sodium and potassium is also key to staying hydrated, and that's what I really like to do. So I try to drink regular intervals throughout the day. As soon as I no practice is on the horizon, like within the next 20 or the next 2-3 hours, I really start hitting water hard, just because I have to be ready I kind of try to get, like that P chart that I showed you, I try to get it to a certain point. And it's kind of just like, you got to get in your own routine. And that's something that I didn't really fully understand when I was a high school athlete. And I'll talk to you about those issues that I had in high school here in a little bit. But you really have to get yourself into a routine. And that's something that everyone has to figure out on their own. But for me, I'll drink water during meetings, before meetings, like right after meetings get out, like all the way up until I put my cleats on to practice. And then like I've gotten to such a routine over these 4 years here at the University of Alabama that I know exactly when I have to pee in order to Jake, yes, you can have an autograph here in a little bit. I know exactly, kind of what I have to do in order to get myself ready. And that's something that you guys will figure out over time. So Janae asked, what do you recommend for athletes who hate drinking water but know they need to? My teammates can't stand drinking water. So the best thing would be Gatorade, just because it's got that perfect mix of electrolytes, sodium, and pretty much everything else that you need to reach that maximum hydration. If they don't like Gatorade, coconut water I think is really good. A lot of people don't have access to that. Other than that, I would say like any like sparkling water or like a fruit drink, almost like those sparkling ices are really good. Or like even like put Crystal Light like in a water bottle. I do that a lot, and that helps out with a lot of the taste. Blue Gatorade is phenomenal. I'm more of a lemon lime kind of guy, but blue's also really good. So I want to talk to you guys because a lot of you, I'm sure, are in high school right now, and you might struggle with. I struggled with. I'm from Missouri, where it's not necessarily as hot as Alabama, but it can get really hot, and I would cramp almost every single football game, and a lot of that was to deal with me just never really getting a break, but most of it dealt with the fact that I didn't know how to properly hydrate myself. So because of my improper knowledge of nutrition and everything that was supposed to go into it, I felt like I hurt myself and hurt my team. And that's the last thing I want to happen to you guys. So almost every single game, it would probably be the third or fourth quarter, usually the third quarter, I would just get hit with terrible calf cramps. And that was something that's extremely, difficult to play through. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen that finals game a couple years ago where LeBron was playing for the Heat, and the atmosphere of the arena was so hot that he cramped, and he had never done that before. But I'm sure if he would have taken proper steps, knowing that it was hot outside to do that, that wouldn't have happened to him. And those proper steps for me in high school were not the proper steps that I take now. So one thing that I live and die by, and I didn't have when I was in high school, is this Right Stuff thing. So basically what this is, sodium is extremely important in your muscles to make sure you're not cramping. So if you guys can see, sodium-wise, there's 1780 milligrams. That's 70% of your daily value of sodium. So I lose a lot of salt whenever I sweat. I'm sure some of you guys too. That's how you get like salt rings around your hat or salt rings around your shirt. And that's something that a lot of you guys probably deal with. So in order to combat that, you have to put all this sodium in before. So whenever you lose it, it's not as detrimental. So you're supposed to drink one of these per hour. I think that's a little extreme. So I usually drink 2 or 3 of these like throughout the day. And that really has helped me out. I'll drink these at practice. And a lot of you guys, your nutritionists might not have these available. That's something that we're fortunate enough to have. But if it's really a problem for you, I would recommend, buying it on your own, because it really is that important. So what I want to do for you guys, because I'm sure a lot of you are probably wondering about this, is actually try one of these. And they're not very good, but I want to show you guys just kind of what it's like to take one of these. And Kendall asked, where can people find those? So they have a website called, it's on here, I thought, just rightstuff.com. And you can order these like by the bulk. Our nutritionist gets these for us and has really helped me out. So It's like all of your daily sodium in one little shot. And it's not really little. It's like it's only an ounce, but it feels like a lot more than an ounce. So I always like to just preload with a little water to make it not as bad. So, mm, mm, mm. That's not very good. But whenever your playing is on the line and your team needs you, you are willing to do things like that. And it's terrible. It's really awful, but it really helps your body. So back to the high school story. So we were playing in the state championship game in Missouri that used to be at the Edward Jones Dome where the St. Louis Rams used to play. Obviously, they're not St. Louis Rams anymore. But it was very hot in there. It was probably like 80 degrees. And we were playing a team called Webb City who wins all the time in Missouri. And this was like kind of our year. I felt like we could really win. And it was my junior year. And I was, a pretty important part to our team. And I did not, I don't want to say I didn't properly hydrate myself because I did everything that I could or that I knew of when I was that age. And I obviously know a lot more now. But I did, pretty much everything that I thought I was supposed to be doing. Third quarter comes around, it's a very tight ball game. I think it's like 21 to 20 or like 21 to 17, something like that. And we are winning. And I go down with a terrible hamstring, quad, and calf cramp, like on both legs, could not walk. And I'm just kind of laying out there on the field. And it's kind of embarrassing. I'm sure you guys have always done that or have felt that before where you're really not injured, but because of the ramifications of this, you just can't move. And that's something that's extremely frustrating. I'm sure you guys have seen it on TV. And it was really frustrating to me because we made it all this way. This is our 15th game, and like my team needed me, but I couldn't, pull through for them because of this hydration. And that was a terrible feeling for me. And we ended up losing the game because I tried to go back out there, but you just can't. And that's what cramping does to your body. You just cannot play anymore. And that's, something that I extremely regret, but it's something that happened. And I want to give you guys some knowledge so that it doesn't happen to you. So kind of what happens like when you start cramping, like what can you do to try and fight that? Like I said, the right stuff is great. It's gone now, but it's really great. Andy said as a former ice hockey player, we used to hydrate like crazy. Yeah, absolutely. So I could see that, especially with all that ice hockey gear on. It's extremely hot, and it's just every sport is different. Every sport uses different muscles. For football, for me as a tight end, I use my legs a ton just because blocking is one of the most strenuous things that you can do in all of sport. It uses your abs, your legs, your shoulders, pretty much everything. And that's something that every time I caught a cramp, it was because I was blocking. And so what can you do essentially to combat cramping once you start doing it? It's the right stuff thing is great. A lot of people do not like that, and I understand why, because it's awful. There are other salt methods that you can do. I know salt tablets are one. You can even just bring a handful of salt with you and just eat it. Or you can put some salt in some hot water and just kind of drink salt water, which is gross too. But that works for me. You can do the coconut water thing, or you can do even pretzels or sunflower seeds. Or pretty much you just have to constantly be putting that salt and that water in as you lose it throughout the game. Because a lot of people think you don't have to hydrate once the game starts going, but that's not the case. You need to be drinking as much water as you're losing. And that's really hard for people because it starts to hurt your stomach. But that's something that Kirsten said. Can we see the P chart again? Absolutely. So let me just grab it over here. So this kind of looks almost like this. I've had that before, and you're good to go. You can kind of get it to look like that. Most people are probably somewhere in here most of the time, which is kind of like a lighter colored apple juice or something like that. And that's where most people are at. And like technically that's not bad, but when you're hydrated, you're performing at your optimum peak. And being hydrated helps you stay injury free. It helps you. Kirsten said, "Who's at the bottom P?" So really, if you guys have ever seen this before, I would like to know, because it says down here, consult a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell that that's bad. But you guys need to be aiming for somewhere in here. And obviously you can't get to that point like 20 minutes before practice. Like you have to be here 2 or 3 hours before and still drink. And that's a lot of people have said that you have to be hydrated like 48 hours before. And I believe that too, because you can't just be dehydrated like all week and then put it back like at the very end. That doesn't work like that. It's a science. There's a science to it. And figuring that out will help you guys perform at your optimal level. So another thing that I do to try to help prevent cramping is preloading with salt. I'm sure a lot of you like salting your foods or salting, pretty much anything. That's something that you can do to really help fight that. And that, looks like my guy Salt Bay here. He always salts his stuff, and I would live by that because that's one way to get that salt in like at a normal rate. Like if you just put a little extra salt on your food every time you eat, you'll naturally get more salt in, and you'll preload, as what I call it. And whenever you lose salt, it won't be nearly as bad. So obviously, what does it look like? Or what's another way that you can do, like once you start cramping, to try and fight it? So right here, I'm sure everyone has seen this picture. When you're at this point, it's almost too late though. So trying to avoid this, and Annie asked, what are signs of dehydration so you don't get to this, other than cramping? I know one of the major ones for me is you kind of stop sweating, which sounds weird, but because your body is so devoid of water, it's really, at that point, it's kind of too late. But that's probably my big sign. You'll really start to just kind of feel like you're tense everywhere. Like I know I'll get it like my forearms or my back where they're kind of like jolt and like lock up a little bit. I'm sure you guys have felt that before. Shannon asked, how many bottles of water do you drink per day? That's a really good question from my fiance. So how many bottles of water do I drink per day? I would say everyone always says like 8 glasses of 8 ounces, so that'd be 64 ounces. If you don't do anything physical the whole day, that might be enough. I would say I usually try to drink like probably at least 150 ounces. So how many bottles that would probably be like 10 roughly, like maybe 9 16-ounce bottles. And I sometimes feel like that's not enough, but it's sometimes hard to tell because you drink so much in practice out of like a water hose or whatever. But if you guys can figure out the best way to, it's really all about just figuring out what works for you. Talk to your nutritionist, do some research online, and figure out, what the best things that are for you. Some of you might not need the extra sodium. I have guys on my team that can drink, Dr. Pepper before they go out there and not drink anything all day, and they're totally fine. And everyone's wired differently. But for me, I know what it looks like. I'm on the severe end of it. I have to have a ton of salt just because of how much that I lose. And I have to drink a ton of water. And some people are not like that. But if you are like me, hopefully I told you some good things in order to, really try and figure out what's best for you. So if anyone has any other questions about anything at all, whether that's what a typical day looks like for me, or anything about Alabama, or pretty much anything you can think of, I'm more than happy to answer those. But other than that, I think I pretty much, went over everything. But it's National Hydration Day, June 23rd, and drink some more water than you normally do June 23rd, and just try it out. A lot of people get headaches really bad, And that's one thing I've always tried to tell my mom because she has the worst migraines. And I'm like, well, how much water did you drink today? And she's like, oh, 1 bottle. That's not enough. That's one way that a lot of people get a ton of headaches. And I always say, that's probably why you're having headaches is because you don't drink enough water. Water, we're made of like 70% water. And that's something, why wouldn't you put it back in? So water is the key to unleashing your full potential as an athlete and really taking advantage of everything that you have in your arsenal. So I hope you guys learned some stuff. Thank you so much for joining me, and roll Tide.